Hello everyone, welcome to Travel Explore Celebrate Life with Veena World. We are your hosts. I'm Neil, and as always, we have Sunila. Today on Travel Explore Celebrate Life, we are going to talk about a destination that we actually, even after 90 episodes, haven't really spent time
Mhm.
talking, and we felt that it is extremely necessary that we bring it up. We bring up the land of palaces, the land of islands, and of course, we'll get into why it is called that. But presenting Abu Dhabi, which is all over the news recently because it just hosted the final Grand Prix of the year on the Formula One calendar. And it was a very interesting race. And now all of us Formula One fans have to wait another 4 months before the season gets going again. But Sunila, Abu Dhabi is more than just Formula One. Abu Dhabi, like I said, is often known as the land of palaces, is often known as the land of islands. Now, when you associate anything with the UAE, you know there are going to be palaces. But why it's called the land of islands is going to be my second question. Let's start today's episode on Abu Dhabi with the one question that everyone really knows that it's called the land of palaces, but why is it called the land of palaces?
Hmm. Neil, good question. Um, it's known as the land of palaces because, yes, like we know that there was, there is the ruling family out there and there has to be a palace. But the funniest part is that the palace that is known as the presidential palace in other countries, usually people would live there. But it is mostly like an office building, actually, and the royal family lives behind it. There is also the Emirates Palace and the Sheikh Zayed. There is another palace which goes back in history, and we'll talk about it a little more. So you have the Sheikh Zayed Palace, which is turned into a museum, which is in Al Ain. You have Qasr Al Watan, which is your presidential palace, and you have Emirates Palace. And both the Emirates Palace and Qasr Al Watan are really very close to each other. They are quite close, and you can actually visit both. So I think it's both are stunning. It's difficult to make a choice as to which one to visit. But yeah, so we can actually say that Abu Dhabi is the land of palaces. But before we even get into the palaces, Neil, I think there's one thing which when I visited Abu Dhabi and I found out when I was out there, which I thought was really interesting, and that is how Abu Dhabi got its name and what it
Hmm.
means. Because very often we kind of we don't even think of it, right? And it was something that I would totally not relate to the UAE in general or the Emirates or any of the Emirates, because the name Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi is in two forms, and Dhabi means a deer or a gazelle. And that is something I would associate with Africa or Kenya or something. But apparently, this is a land of the gazelles and deers as well. And Abu means father, so the father of the deer. And there is a folk tale that says that the Baniyas tribe, which kind of formed all of the Emirates, which formed the Dubai Emirates, they all come from the same tribe actually. So when a member of that tribe was going around looking for food and other things, and he saw this gazelle, and the story goes that the gazelle led him to this place where there was fresh water and other things, and they chose to make this their home, and that's why it was formed by this person from the Baniyas tribe. And because the deer led them to Abu Dhabi, it was named as father of the deer and Abu Dhabi, and that's the name that goes. I didn't know this, and I thought it was really so interesting that something
Yep,
we associate Abu
I didn't
Dhabi
know
with
this.
towers and commercial towers. We don't think of deer, do you? But I'll tell you later why that holds true as we start talking.
Yeah, but that's a great way to start the episode because I think I'm going to ensure that we broadcast this in our tour manager knowledge library also because of all Veena World tour managers when they go to Abu Dhabi. If our guests hear this story, if they
Yes.
haven't listened to our episode already, it'll be great. Like because it's always good to find out where a name comes from, right? So okay,
Sure.
I've been to Abu Dhabi many times. You've been to
Mhm.
Abu Dhabi many times. My trips to Abu Dhabi have been very interesting. I've been twice to the Grand Prix. I
Lucky
when
you, I should
yeah,
say.
yeah, like it is a very nice race, and because both of the times it was Etihad heavies that hosted us, we enjoyed all of the hospitality that comes with a Formula One Grand Prix, and that also allowed me to go karting on a smaller racetrack which is within the
Wow.
track. So that was interesting. And generally over here when we go-kart, you go-kart on normal small slower go-karts, but those were faster go-karts. So I really like that. But now coming back to the palaces, okay, just recapping. So Emirates Palace is not where any of the royal family lives. It is a hotel.
Yes, Neil. So the Emirates Palace is a hotel and it's managed by Mandarin Oriental since I think 2020 or so. It was a Kempinski earlier. It's also, very often we say that is there a 7-star palace? Probably this comes closest to it. The Emirates Palace is all gold. Like it is just gold inside. And even the rooms, there's a lot of marble and gold, quite tastefully done. It's really quite beautiful. So anyone who likes gold is going to love this place. It has more than some 390 rooms in it. And like I remember I was living, this time down, I went around for a what we call as a recce tour, where we go around checking different hotels, different locations and venues. And I was doing this for our corporate tours division, the incentive, and what is known as MICE. And so I was checking a lot of different hotels, but I was staying at the Marriott. And from the Marriott, my room had the view of the Emirates Palace right in front, and I couldn't stop looking at it because it is equally stunning in the day, and it's even more beautiful when it's illuminated in the night. So
it's interesting, right? Like, how you often say that, like, when you're in Paris, do you want to see the Eiffel Tower or do you want to see Paris from the Eiffel Tower?
correct.
Something similar happens over here, right? Do you want to stay at the Emirates Palace or do you want to stay at a hotel that looks at the Emirates Palace? But
yeah, it's a tough choice, and maybe you want to do both. So we kind of got the best of both because I was staying at the Marriott, looking at the Emirates Palace, but we did have a meal at the Hemant Oberoi's Martaban restaurant, which is the fine dining Indian restaurant out there, and it was really interesting. But another thing that is quite popular, which a lot of our Veena Word customized holidays guests do, is to go into the Emirates Palace to have a gold cappuccino. So like gold everywhere, you see gold and marble out there. There are chandeliers. There are, I think, some more than 1,000 chandeliers out there that you don't know where to stop looking when you're inside that place. But whether a meal or not, definitely go in and have a cappuccino that has a layer of actual gold on it. So that is something you can't miss when you're in Abu Dhabi, and I highly recommend that.
I've been hearing a lot about like how destination weddings, like Indian destination weddings, are taking place at the Emirates Palace. And every time I hear, I was like, oh, I just wish I had a friend who's getting married at the Emirates Palace. But maybe, like, if any friends of mine are listening, like, and you can do it, please do it, because
Neil, also, this is the place where most of the dignitaries would stay, right? Whenever they have some meetings in the UAE, and you have the presidents and the prime ministers of different countries. We were shown the room where our Prime Minister Modi ji stayed. So it's quite interesting to actually be there and look at all that happening. So yeah.
Okay, so that's Emirates Palace. Then what is Qasr Al Watan? It is another palace where the royal family doesn't stay.
Yes, so it is a part of the presidential palace complex. So the royal family lives behind it. But Qasr Al Watan, it's again equally beautiful by day and night. By day, you can see this beautiful white structure, white stone, marbles and limestone, and amazing gardens. So there's huge gardens, and when you go in, also you're taken there by their bus. So you go in there and you have a coach that you have to get into, and then you get off, and then the tour starts. And while you're in the coach itself, the mood is set in terms of seeing the lawns, the really widespread lawns out there and everything out there. And once you get in, it's just stunning. Like, you have this huge dome, and you have something called the Great Hall there, which has a lot of the mosaics and again marble, and this one is quite different to Emirates Palace. So it's not like gold leafing everywhere, but it's more of the colors of Abu Dhabi. So you have the color of the sand, the sea, and you have like beige and blues and slightly yellow, and it's all a mix and really pretty. There is an amazing library out there. It is also a place where they say they house a lot of knowledge. So all of the Arab culture, all of the Arab knowledge that has been passed on through years is something that you get to see here. You also get to see where actually the 7 Emirates come and sit, because Abu Dhabi is the capital. So when they come in, where is it that they actually sit and hold their meetings? So it's like it's like seeing the parliament in motion, something like that. But of course, when they actually said you can't go in and see it, but otherwise it is something really stunning that you must see. They also have an amazing banquet, which we again saw, where all the dignitaries are, given a meal, and how they conduct their meetings and dinners. And again, they pointed to us that when the Indian delegation was there, where all could you sit and see. A very interesting thing here is something called the Palace in Motion, which is a light and sound show, which happens after, generally, of course, when it's dark. So around 6:30, after that, every half an hour, they have a light and sound show. And it shows you the whole history of Abu Dhabi and how it came across. So I thought it was really quite interesting. So they have a crystal chandelier, which has more than, I think, some 350,000 crystals in it. So it's something very stunning, and you'll want to take pictures everywhere.
Speaking of chandeliers, like they are just like crazy everywhere, right? Like I think the Sheikh Zayed Mosque also has 7 chandeliers, of which one is the second largest in the world or something like that. And we'll discuss it when we come to the Sheikh Zayed Mosque. But yeah, like, okay, that's Qasr al-Watan. Now, you said the actual royal palace, of course, it's behind or next
it's all part of this presidential palace, but it's a completely separate building. So when you go into Qasr al-Watan, you go in almost expecting to know that this is the area, but you don't see it. That is completely for culture and knowledge, and of course partnerships within the region, and for all the dignitaries who would visit. So government, basically. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Now, have you missed out any palaces? Because my next question was going to be islands.
Neil, the only other palace I can mention, and I think it's really important to see it, is the Sheikh Zayed Palace Museum, which has now turned into a museum, which is in Al Ain. And when I visited Al Ain, which is about 90 minutes from Abu Dhabi, and that is really where Al Nayan, the founder, Sheikh Nayan, when they started from this place, and you can see how modest it was. So to come from there to build something like this, and it's not even 100 years. I guess it's about some 70 years that this transition happened. And it's just stunning to see it, because the Sheikh Zayed Palace Museum complex is made in red stone, and it's very, very modest. So you can see that how they started. It has a tent. And I think even just for that very fact, to know that this is where Abu Dhabi started, this is how everything began. It's nice to see that, and then see both the Emirates Palace and Qasr al-Watan, and kind of see that, wow, they've really come a long way. I mean, urbanization and everything else, and progress. It's almost like you can feel the progress that has happened. So I would really recommend seeing that.
You can really see it. And one of the places where you really can see it, and of course, the great Ranveer Singh has been telling us about it, is Yas Island.
Yes.
Right? I visited Yas Island when it was just one small thing and nothing else. Even Ferrari World hadn't opened. And today it's this mammoth island. So my next section of our episode was going to be, why is Abu Dhabi called the land of islands?
Yes, and I was about to come there because, like we mentioned, that it was the land of palaces as well. And it is also a land of islands because there are many different islands. And what I found very interesting is that they've kind of dedicated each place, because it's all being made recently. I think it's an amazing chance for them to build things with proper planning. And you can see that everywhere. So even with the islands, you mentioned Yas. Yas is the entertainment island. So everything to do with entertainment, you will find it here on Yas. So you have, you mentioned Ferrari World, you have Water World, Warner Brothers, everything, the Grand Prix, Marina Circuit is out there. So all of the entertainment is focused and concentrated here. Then you have Saadiyat Island, which is more like the cultural island.
Let me pause you there. People have been raving about Warner Brothers of late, and they just love it. Like,
yes,
Ferrari
and
World
all our guests love it too. And when I was there, and I guess we'll talk of the other islands later. Since we are on Yas, let's talk a little bit more about Yas and Warner Brothers. And so when you go in for a recce tour, you're working, right? So you don't have time to do rides and stuff. You're just going there to check that. And it was so hot. And when we went into Warner Brothers, it's all covered. That's the best part of things there, because other theme parks, you're out in the open, you're sweating, you're tired. But once we entered Warner Brothers, and I realized that the entire theme park is covered. So it was like air conditioned and beautiful. And we saw so many interesting rides. And I had two more people from the team with me, and both of them were looking at me like pleading that can't we do just one ride? And I said, come back with your family. But we just didn't have the time. So we just
You know,
looked at all the wonderful rides, but we didn't have
there's
a
this
chance.
massive stuffed toy in your daughter
Mhm.
Sarah's room.
Yes.
That's the tiger, right? Or like
Yeah, it's
something like
and
that.
she refuses. She's grown up
Yeah.
how many
Hmm.
years, but she refuses to let go of it. Yeah.
So that we won at Warner Brothers in
Oh,
Abu Dhabi.
okay. Now
So
I
it was
get it.
like
Yeah.
basically there were 7 of us, all of us cousins, and we had a 8-seater van or a car like the Kia Carnival that you have nowadays.
Yeah.
And the 8th seat was occupied by this massive stuffed toy that she
I'm
won at
wondering
Warner
how did
Brothers.
you all bring it on the flight? That must be some story.
No, it's
So
nothing. She sat in her seat, and back then I think it was Jet Airways, and unfortunately, we were in the last few rows of Jet
mhm.
Airways. So of course, I'm sitting there, it's cramped because my legs aren't fitting and fidgeting and everything. And here she is sitting, hugging this stuffed
The
toy.
giant. Yeah.
She's still a child. If she's listening, she'll probably get pissed that I said that. But yes, that stuffed toy came from Warner Brothers Abu Dhabi.
But Neil, just now what you said, I think a family holiday is all about that, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
just cousins or it's something. And Abu Dhabi offers so much of that for a family. So I feel like now it's really time that, instead of like a day visit to Abu Dhabi, you can look at extending a stay there because there is just so much to do. So tell me, in Warner Brothers, would you say like, can you do it in half a day? Would you do it in half a day? Would you spend the whole day there?
See, generally, and how we optimize itineraries is that we want to ensure that we want to, like, it's often called the traveler's dilemma. How do I get the most out of my day, but at the same time ensure that I'm fresh and I
Correct.
don't like run around, right?
Correct.
So I will say you can do it in half a day because if you have someone like we have the Veena World Tour manager generally with our tour groups, right? We know the optimal itinerary that you should
Correct.
take, how
Yeah,
many
of
like
course.
how many people are standing in line generally at this ride at this time of the day and all of that, and then you can optimize it in such a way that you do it properly. See, you've seen Disneyland, you've seen Universal Studios and all of that. Most of the time is us looking at the map and then being like, should I go to Space Mountain first, then should I go to It's a Small World, should I go to this other Peter Pan ride? But when you optimize it, you can do it in half a day. Same thing with Ferrari World. If you optimize it, you can do it in half a day.
And
But
Neil, our group stay on Yas Island, right? So it kind
yeah,
of helps with no transport. You don't waste time in going around. So you're right. If you want to, optimize time, then stay on Yas Island itself, and then
yeah.
you can easily do everything. It's so
Some
easy.
of our
Yeah.
groups will be on Yas Island, some of our groups may be somewhere else. But one of the great things about Abu Dhabi and UAE in general is great roads. And even if you're traveling for like 30, 40 minutes, you just don't feel it. It's
Yes,
just great.
that's true. That's true.
So yeah, that's Yas Island. You can go there for the Grand Prix. You can go there for anything. Just go have fun because it is one great recreational place. But okay, Sunila, let's come to the other islands. Tell me about it.
Yes. So my next island that I really like out there in Abu Dhabi, and I fell in love with it this time when I went. It's still kind of new for most Indian travelers. Is Saadiyat Island, and that is kind of the culture island, if I can say so. The Guggenheim is being built there. The Louvre Museum is already there, and Saadiyat has these beautiful luxury resorts which are excellent if you're staying back. So say, sometimes you take a group tour and you do like what is known as a post-tour holiday. So after the tour, you can stay back and explore something on your own. Or if you just want a customized holiday, you want to go in and do things your way, or even for a MICE, incentive tour, Saadiyat is amazing because it has these sprawling resort kind of hotels, and the properties have a lot of them have their own private beaches. You could just be in stunning powder white sands and blue waters, and the whole beauty of it really comes to life when you're actually out there. And Neil, here is where you see some gazelle, running around near the island as well. So on the beach, you can see deer at certain times of the year. And then that's when the name Abu Dhabi, kind of the whole thing connected. And Soul Beach out there is again amazing. It's a beautiful beach lined with restaurants. So for evenings, this is where you should be. After a dip in the ocean or something, just stay back there. And there's a QR app and stuff, and they can bring food for you. So Sadiat is something quite special. But yes, the Louvre Museum is also out there, designed by Jean Noel, and it is very different to the one in France. So you've been to the one in Paris, and have you been to Abu Dhabi as well?
I've been to Abu Dhabi multiple times too. I've been to the one in France. And one thing, I don't know, I'll ask you this. Would you give our listeners and travelers a tip that don't go into the Louvre Abu Dhabi expecting the Louvre Paris? Because it is very different, right?
Very, very different. Absolutely. I would say don't compare. Other than the name, nothing is common. I mean, let's just think of it as the Louvre establishment from Paris decided to build something new in Abu Dhabi. I like the one in Abu Dhabi quite a bit because I think it's very modern. So, the one in France and Paris is very historical. The palace itself in which the Louvre Paris is housed is a very historical palace. So it's traditional, it's different. What they've done in Abu Dhabi, Neil, is that they've taken the whole character of the Arab Emirates. They've brought the architectural elements of the region, and they've transformed it into something very, very new. So it's where the sun and the sky and the sands meet, I can say, on Sadiat Island. So it's right on the water. It's a very modern structure, all in white. And there's a lot of play of light out there. So even that great dome that they have, there's such a modern dome, and you have light filtering through, you have water that's kind of shining. So it's a very, very different feeling. Even when you're entering the Louvre Abu Dhabi, they've kind of constructed it in white and everything is in white, but very, very, very different to the one in Paris. I won't say you can't really compare. That's all I can say, that it's totally different. So yes, don't go in thinking
it's got a super nice dome to it also, right?
Yeah, very, very nice, very pretty dome. And in fact, if someone's looking to visit, then next year in January, they are planning to do something called Bollywood Superstars, which is looking at the history of Indian cinema from, and the whole archive. So I'm quite interested to see how that goes through. They have a very interesting children's section, which is not typically like a museum. And I quite enjoyed it because there were different aspects to it. There was an Arab area. There was also a very big Indian, things on display. So art and other artifacts, everything you can see there is really quite stunning. But yes, very different to the one in Paris. So it's not like an alternative really, but yeah, if you like museums or if you just love looking, like I had someone who just wanted to go there because they like architecture and they wanted to appreciate the architecture of the building as much as the exhibits there. So it's interesting.
So that's Sadiat. What do you think we've missed? Of course, there's Sheikh Zayed Mosque that we're going to talk about.
Yes, I think I would like to mention the Jubail Park, which is this amazing mangrove area. And, we often think that everything around the GCC or the Emirates or the Gulf countries is usually something that is more man-made and more about urbanization. And you can see these tall skyscrapers, and there are some really amazing skyscrapers and buildings that you can look at in Abu Dhabi also for its architectural beauty. But between Sadiat and Yas Island, we spoke of both the islands, is the Jubail Mangrove Park. And this has a beautiful boardwalk that has been created, and you can actually go out there for a walk with a ranger. You can even do a kayaking tour out there, and you can do night kayaking. And the night kayaking, very interesting because the kayak has LED lights below it. So it's called the night glow kayaking. So that's again something you can do. 4,000 hectares of mangroves. So something quite stunning, day or night, kayaking, walking, just supporting and taking care of the environment is something that you'll see here. So that is definitely something I would mention that you can do, but this is of course weather dependent. So go in the winter. That's the time to go there. Few more places. We mentioned a little bit about Al Ain, but I'd like to speak more on Al Ain, because Al Ain is something that you must try to visit if you can. Other than the Sheikh Zayed Palace Museum that I mentioned, that is there. For families, that's a very interesting Al Ain Zoo. And you can actually do giraffe feeding and different things out here. They have a option like very classic Emirati style. They have an option of a safari in a very nice four-wheel drive. So it was like quite luxurious. So, for many times people say that in safaris, they find the car or the four-wheel drive or the Jeeps to be quite bumpy. But the cars here were stunning, like the four-wheel drive SUVs are amazing height, and they all open up so you can, look at the animals, and the animals are free roaming. So that kind of felt quite nice. The one thing that is quite interesting again, and which gives you a whole perspective of the culture and history of this place, is something called the Al Ain Oasis. So when we talk of deserts, we hear that there are oases, and Al Ain Oasis is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is where you go in and you can see a little model of the whole oasis. And Neil, here is where you see different farms, and it's so green, and all the date palms are out here, and you can actually see a lot of dates. So we were like, seeing if some dates have fallen on the ground to pick them up. But they are working farms. And what you get to see here is something called the Falat system. So when, the tribes in those days, how did they manage irrigation in a desert, and how did they have water for an oasis? And this is really what you see here. Like, how did they dig it in a mountain? They kind of created these underground channels for water, and the water was brought to the oasis. So you can actually see it in action here. And if you're lucky, the water is still flowing depending on weather. So something very interesting. So it's this nice, beautiful green patch. So Al Ain is something I would add to the program. There are other things to do there, but these are the basics.
There used to be a time when we used to be like, oh, like, I'm flying Etihad. Should I just stop over for a few hours in Abu Dhabi and just go to Ferrari World and come back? Today, there are so many things to do that we are like, oh, maybe a 3-nighter is also not enough. Maybe 2 trips are not enough. And you just can keep going on and on and on, right? Like,
I miss the mangroves. I was there for 3 nights, but of course I had other agenda like checking the hotels, but I just didn't have the time to go and check out the mangroves. But I said, okay, there's always something for next time. And before we go to the Sheikh Zayed Mosque, just to complete this whole thing about the islands and how they are developed. So when we were seeing, we also managed to see Hudariyat Island from a distance, but we did learn that this is an island that is dedicated to sports and fitness, which I thought was amazing.
It's like you can, if you want to do the tough mudder just by yourself or with your friends, tough mudders, this obstacle course, you have it over there.
5 to 10, cycling tracks, recreational parks. So I mean, just the luxury of having an island dedicated to sports and fitness is so amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, let's move to the Sheikh Zayed Mosque.
Yes.
I think the largest mosque in the UAE. We spoke about the chandeliers there, 7 crazy chandeliers. What was your first impression when you first went to the mosque?
I thought it was one of the most beautiful structures that I'd seen, but I was also worried whether I was dressed properly and whether, I needed something else, or
very
because
important,
to
right?
reach there, Neil, and then not be able to enter it because you aren't dressed properly would be the last thing that you want. So, just make sure that your shoulders are covered and you are properly dressed. No slippers.
No shorts.
No shorts. Yeah. No,
your knees have to be covered.
Yes. And then
no sleeveless tops.
I don't remember now, but they used to give an abaya there to cover you if
they used to, but why take a chance, right?
Exactly. You don't want to, and maybe that day there are just too many people that there are none of the ones left that they give you. So just carry your things, and for ladies, I would say just take a stole with you. You can cover everything with a stole very easily. So because it's so pretty, and I think it's a matter of respecting the tradition, right? Like there's nothing wrong in being prepared. So it was like awe and fear together. Like I looked at it and I said, this is so pretty. And then I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm dressed appropriately to enter. So of course,
what are some of the things that you remember or you recall about the mosque?
I think the most interesting thing that kind of stuck me there, or amongst a lot of things, was, do I look at the ceiling first or do I look at the floor first? It was like so confusing
And
because
super white, right?
the super white, the carpets and the chandeliers out there. So I think I spent half my time looking down and the other half looking up. And then I said, okay, you need time to really take it all in. So
Yeah.
it's nice to sit down. And I remember sitting down there and just admiring that mosque. So, the whole Persian carpet in the main hall.
So
looking
that
at
carpet, that
Uh-huh.
carpet is the largest hand knotted carpet in the
Wow.
world. Some 5,700 square meters, took 2 years to complete, and there were about 1,200 artisans who worked on that carpet and created different parts of the carpet. But that's at the bottom. But below the carpet, there's marble. And now marble was imported from Macedonia. According to His Royal Highness, the marble had to be white, which gave you a symbol of purity. And I think 100,000 or 1 lakh tons of white marble was imported from Macedonia, and it has been used to give that white feeling. So that was crazy. The chandeliers, I remember, again, any chandelier you go like, oh, Swarovski crystals, right?
Yeah.
Second largest chandelier in the world is also in that main prayer hall. And that main prayer hall or the mosque is said to accommodate about 40,000 worshippers at a time. That's crazy. And you're like, oh, wow, this is incredible. What else can be crazy about this? It just keeps going. Like I was just making my notes. It's 1,192 pillars exist in the mosque. And then there are all of those 4 minarets, right? And then there's this massive dome. Now, when you look at it from the outside, you see so many domes. So there are 82 domes of different sizes, with the biggest one being 85 meters high. And from the outside, it's great. From the inside, it's great. Photography inside the mosque is also allowed, because then you can capture all of those different types of architectural styles that have been that you see in the palace. So I just felt like, I've been there during the day. I've been there in the evening. I've been there at night. And at night, of course, it is lit up and it's nicely done up. So I think that it just gives you a different picture or understanding at different times of the day. Often everyone likes going and visiting the mosque at night, but I often say that during the day is when I really liked it more, because then in broad daylight, you can really see how white that mosque is.
Yes.
And and that's why many of our tour groups will go during the day, because during the day you see I don't know, it just feels fresh. And
I agree, because Neil, and of course, at evening, I feel it's something, things should be seen from a distance. Like if you really want to go in and experience monuments, then definitely go during the day. And at night, do a panoramic tour if you want to, and just look at things from a distance, because they just look beautifully illuminated. But if you really want to experience the place, then I agree. I would say go in definitely during the day.
Nice. Well, I think we've covered it all, and it took us a while to get to Abu Dhabi as an episode, but we've done it because Abu Dhabi has done it. Like we discussed, what many years ago was just like, oh, should I stop over in Abu Dhabi for a few hours? Today is like, should I do a post-tour Veena World holiday in Abu Dhabi? Is what people ask us. So and then Etihad, great product, right, Sunila? Like getting to Abu Dhabi, of course, there are many airlines that get there, but Etihad, the food's great. They have a great economy and business class.
Even the entertainment system, the food, that is most important in the flight, right? Your seats, your entertainment and food, and all three take off really well with Etihad.
And one of the best things, and I just can't stop talking about this, is that if you're flying Etihad and if you're flying to the US, you do immigration at Abu Dhabi. So you land into the US as a domestic passenger.
And I can't tell you how much time that it saves. Because when you go to the US and say you're going to New York or one of the popular cities, I have stood in queue in the US immigration for 3 hours at a 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours is what it takes. So it's a great way to travel to the US. And yeah, take a stop back on the way back, stay back in Abu Dhabi. We haven't even touched shopping because there was just so many other things to say that we didn't mention. And if you want to go to Dubai from Abu Dhabi, come back to Abu Dhabi if you have to for your shopping. But there is enough shopping in Abu Dhabi itself. So there is just so much to do. So, Neil, one interesting thing before I close, what I want to say is we've also noticed a reverse trend now with a lot of people traveling, and especially with corporate groups and of course some others, is that they are going to Abu Dhabi. They do the entire program in Abu Dhabi, and then they go to Dubai maybe for the Burj Khalifa or something else. So, what a few years back was Dubai first and then a visit to Abu Dhabi and back. Because so many people have already visited Dubai many times, they are now looking at going to Abu Dhabi and then doing a day trip to Dubai and back because it's so close. So that is also an emerging trend that I found quite interesting.
And yeah, like it's only a matter of time until the Middle East becomes a Europe, right? Where you can start combining many different places.
Yes.
But we'll wait for that. But yep, listeners, that was Abu Dhabi, a destination where 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, maybe a week is also not enough. You can probably go there, work during the day, and just enjoy the evenings at one of these great places that offer you entertainment, shopping, food, and everything. Thank you for listening to this episode of Travel Explore Celebrate Life. Sunila, thanks a lot. We will meet our listeners and viewers on YouTube the next time. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.